The nuclear family is a puppet regime, and the emperor has no clothes. Now, I can't take full credit for the origination of this idea. There is another very thoughtful creator here on YouTube who recently made a video discussing this idea, and I will give you a little bit more information about her toward the end. She posited that the nuclear family structure is created, it was set up to fail because it places in the position of leader the one individual in the family who is most likely to be the weakest link. And I said to myself, why would that be the case? Why would, at the inception of a nation, when a civilization is being built, why would the leaders within that civilization hand down this idea of a family structure that is weak at its foundation? Well, we know that we live in a world that is set up in such a way that exploitation is at the foundation of every institution, every nation building effort, every imperialistic exploit. So if the very foundation of the family structure, which is the building block of a civilization, is weak, then that makes everyone within a household, within a community, more susceptible, weaker, easier to control, easier to manipulate, easier to feed to that exploitative system. What happens with a puppet regime? An outside government steps into a situation where there may be upheaval within a nation, where there's, for whatever reason, some weakness that's already existing. And they cloak themselves in an illusion of morality or superiority in order to make themselves the authority that offers the solution. And then they set in place the puppet, the despot, the dictator, who is going to, by way of exploitation and constant abuse, gaslighting, manipulation, going to keep that nation as weak as possible so that it can continue to feed resources and energy into the hands of that outside nation that is controlling the puppet who's in place. Sounds a lot like the families, the many families, the too many families out there that are struggling under the so-called leadership of dictators. You take the individual who is most susceptible to distraction, who has the least self-control, who has been groomed to be the least emotionally intelligent, who has been groomed and socialized to be the most inept, most incapable of multitasking and handling the executive functioning tasks that are required to run a household and to be there to love and care for a family. You take that individual and you exalt him to the pedestal of leadership. You make everybody else in the family unit believe that that individual is inherently more capable than everyone else of being the leader. You take the men who could potentially have those skills, and from the very time that they are infants, you harass and beat those sensibilities out of them so that by the time they are grown, the leadership skills that they could have contributed to a family unit are null. I firmly believe that men and women need to learn how to lead together. I believe that men are not any more or less inherently capable of leadership than women. But I do believe that men have been particularly crippled by the society at large, by the gender role game, by all of the dogma and societal expectations that we've been handed, been particularly crippled and rendered incapable in so many instances, on so many levels, of really being the leader within a household that you've been deluded into believing that you are. Now, that's not every man. Of course, we got to make sure we include that caveat. Not all men and not all women are great leaders of their household, even if they've been forced to be the only leaders. Everybody's got some work and some growing up to do. But we are at a particular point in history when men are expected, more and more women are expecting men to be humane, to be decent human beings, not just good providers and protectors. So men are having to elevate in a way that they haven't had to for millennia. You got some catching up to do. Everybody's got some work to do, but y'all been behind on the homework for a few hundred years now. Healthier family structures have existed for thousands of years. There have been people out there doing it a different way, creating more egalitarian family structures. Family structures that are not founded upon the idea of stratifying members of the family in order to pedestalize some and make others inferior. Family structures that are not founded upon exploitation. And the women who get it don't have time to wait around. We ain't got several hundred years to wait around for a critical mass of men to figure it out. There are men out there who have figured it out. We're thankful for that. But there aren't enough. We all know that. If you're honest with yourselves, you can admit that. So all of the infighting and deflection and gaslighting and BSing, it's a waste of time. Let's everybody just grow up and do the damn thing. Let's get a move on. There are some wonderful fathers out there, some wonderful family men who are pillars of their households, pillars of their community, who over the years, over the decades, the centuries, some of us have had the opportunity to observe them working alongside their wives, and even some of them might have been single dads, working on behalf of their children and their families. Just doing the right thing, doing what a parent is supposed to do. But unfortunately, there are far more stories of men not doing that than there should be. It does not actually appear to be the case that men are inherently the leaders within the household. Otherwise, more of them would naturally take on those responsibilities. They would naturally bring those skills to the family unit. And instead, what we see is many of them becoming easily distracted by the shiny things of potential new women, other opportunities outside the household, career, money, all of the myriad things that could potentially take men away from their families. There wouldn't be such a high prevalence of men shutting down emotionally or physically or financially or in whatever way if it was actually natural for men to be the leaders of households. And as I've said, they can develop those skills, they can be those leaders, but that's a choice. In the same way that so many women have chosen to take on the responsibility of leadership for their children and their families, whether they had a man by their side or not. We have been indoctrinated to believe that the nuclear family structure is the only valid form of family. This family structure in which once children hit this arbitrary age of 18, they must be thrown out of the nest in order to go out into the world as individuals and become energy sources for the economic structures outside the home. They're thrown out of the home when they're at their weakest state as adults, when they are still green, still vulnerable, and they're prime pickings for the credit card companies, for the student loan companies that prey upon them and are waiting to saddle them with mortgages of debt as soon as they leave the nest. And if you don't jump out of the nest, you don't straighten up and fly right as quickly as the economic structure assumes you should, then you're a bum. At 18 years of age, before you even know who you are as a person, before you've had the opportunity to explore the world and figure out who you are separate from your family, you're told that you are less than if you do not become a sufficient food source for the economic structure as an individual. You're made to feel inadequate if you have to become a boomerang, as they called some of y'all back during the 2008 economic crisis. If you have to return home because you can't afford the exorbitant rents or mortgages that have been created out there, you're denigrated for not measuring up when you probably should have never left home at your weakest state to begin with. In other cultures where family is truly nuclear, that term nuclear comes from the term nucleus. In the nuclear family, the husband and wife are considered to be the nucleus of that family. Whereas in other family structures that are prioritized in other cultures and in other parts of the world, the extended family is prioritized. The community effort for everybody to pool their resources and help make the individuals strong within those family units before they have to go out into the world and create something on their own. That's the difference. But this is the idea that we have been indoctrinated with. And utopia doesn't exist. Of course, all family structures, all ideas have their flaws, but it's easy to see the ones that have many more gaping flaws than others. And of course, I'm not saying that children should stay at home forever or that they shouldn't be contributing productive members of the family unit while they are at home. They absolutely should be working on becoming their best so that they can at some point develop an adequate level of independence. I'm simply pointing out that in other family structures where everyone does not worship at the pedestal of individualism, women are not left to fend for themselves with infants while their bodies are still trying to heal, while they're trying to learn to be mothers. There are communities that surround them that they don't have to pay thousands of dollars a month for to get the support that they need to raise children. Family values are truly at the heart of the manner in which the community is constructed. Children's well-being are actually taken into account. Communities are kept strong. People work together to keep their communities strong, to invest in the relationships with their extended family members, valuing each other so that the support that they need is there when they need it. It doesn't create a perfect community or family dynamic by any stretch of the imagination. No idea does. But it's a hell of a lot better than everyone living on their own lonely, depressed island. I'm pointing out the fact that that's not the only way that things can be done. In other parts of the world where the cultures are more family focused, people have stronger relationships with their extended family members. People don't live thousands of miles away or several hundred miles away from their parents, from their siblings, from their cousins, their aunts, their nieces and nephews. There's a strong extended family unit that individuals can tap into for the support that humans need to function in a healthy way. Why is there such an epidemic of loneliness in our nation in particular? because we have this nuclear family ideal that everybody's trying to achieve, that leads them to abandon the larger family structure, that leads them to think that it is necessary to leave behind the larger family structure in order to create your own little empire in your own little house in the suburbs. I'm not saying that people shouldn't go out into the world and chart their own course, create their own destiny. That's a wonderful thing. But it's a highly unbalanced existence, in my opinion, for a human being to get so far away from their family unit, from their extended family, from the support and the love that that family structure could potentially provide, in order to go out into a cold world that doesn't know them, doesn't care about them, where others have been indoctrinated to not give a damn about them, right? We've done such a good job of eroding the idea of the collective community in favor of these tiny little family cells, locked away behind our doors, in our homes, suspicious of everyone outside, that we have literally become sitting ducks, ready at every turn to feed ourselves to the economic structures outside those doors. The nuclear family structure has been elevated as the only valid form of family, to such an extent that we have folks on the internet infighting, denigrating one another constantly over this idea of the single mom. She is the new scapegoat for all of the ills of the society at large that have to do with, that initial building block of the family and the home. She's the one who carries the weight, all of the responsibility for when children go off the rails. She's the one on welfare. She's the one creating all these trifling children out here with no morals, no moral compass, no concern for their neighbor, no home training. She's the reason why the man ran off. He was supposed to be the leader. He was supposed to be the one who inherently, naturally had the skill and the know-how to lead and do the right thing. But somehow the woman kept him from doing that. Of course, it's usually assumed that he ran off and left her. But in actuality, the statistics show that it's typically women initiating divorces because they don't want to be in abusive or substandard relationships. So in actuality, a lot of times, many of us become single mothers because we chose to leave toxic relationships. We recognize that the idea of the broken home is flawed. The most broken that your children will be is in a home where there is discord and disharmony. If separating the two parents and even potentially creating a harmonious co-parenting relationships where the two parents live under two different roofs is more peaceful and harmonious and works out better for everyone than being under the same roof, miserable and stagnant together, then it's better to be apart. It does a number on both men and women. We spend so much time infighting over these BS ideas that we don't understand that all of this is by design. When we stop looking for somebody to blame, we can all grow up, put our egos back in their proper places, take our egos off the pedestals, and work together to form leadership alliances within our homes that actually function well, that actually benefit everyone within the family. And if you are a single mom, you don't have to absorb the negativity, the denigration. You don't have to be the scapegoat. You don't have to accept the idea that you are the one upon which society's ills rest. You can free yourself from the notion that there is something wrong with you. Communities of women have raised children together and done it in a healthy and effective way for millennia, long before this nuclear family structure was invented. And that's not to say that the men didn't have their place. In certain cultures and parts of the world, they absolutely did. But this idea that you are inadequate if you don't have a man living in your home, this idea that you have to put all this time and energy into trying to go out and find a man for your children, wasting time, making yourself vulnerable to abusers and perverts and opportunists because you just got to have a man in your house. Simmer down, sis. Chill out. Go sit down somewhere and get centered. There's more than one way to build community. And though it may not be easy, it's highly likely that there are resources within your community. There are opportunities within your community for you to join with other women who are already of the mindset, already have the heart and the desire to be the nurturers and the leaders for the children within your community, who are already willing to walk alongside you. And you all can provide support for one another. You can provide encouragement for one another. You don't have to wait around for men who will never show up. We could be waiting for the rest of our lives. We have to make use of the resources that we have at our disposal now. And if men who are in their right minds, who are truly loving and willing to act as leaders by our side, are willing to come alongside and work with us, willing to work with you, if you happen to encounter that while you're in the process of getting down to business and living your life, wonderful. But it might not ever come. And you can still live a damn good life. You can still create a damn good life for your children. There is support. Don't believe the hype and keep doing what you need to do. You will need to vet. You will need to be attentive to find out whether or not potential influences in your community are healthy. You will need to stay on your job. But there are sports programs, there are coaches, there are community religious organizations, depending on what your faith or, chosen spiritual system is. There are school programs, there are job programs, there are all kinds of programs potentially available in the community around you, where you can introduce your children to healthy examples of men in the community. There may be more in some communities than in others. It may require you to pick up and move to an environment that is healthier for your children. It may require you to be celibate for a while so that you can put your attention where it is supposed to be. It may require you to change jobs. It may require the kids to change schools. That's what parenthood is. That's what leadership is. You will sometimes have to go out of your way to do your level best to get your children the things that they need, to put your children in the best position possible so that they can have a variety of people around them to provide wisdom and love and support. If the nuclear family structure works for you, fine, but there's more than one way to live life. There's more than one way to have a family. There's more than one way to love. There's more than one way to skin a cat. We live in a world that is highly overpopulated with more than 8 billion people. Everybody does not have to do everything the exact same way. Put your thinking cap on. Let's get this done. For the men who are confused and feeling around in the dark, having no understanding of what your place in the new world is, because so much of your idea of manhood was based upon the exploitation of women. You want to know what we need you for now? Evolve. evolve. We need you to evolve. That other YouTube creator who I mentioned in the beginning, the name of her channel is Escaping Patriarchy. She's the one who inspired me to dig a little bit deeper into this idea of the nuclear family. She and many other YouTube creators across the gender spectrum, across the life experience spectrum, are deconstructing this idea and ideas like it. So I encourage you to explore, see what they have to say. Even if you don't agree, especially if you don't agree. Variety is the spice of life, and the human brain is exercised by way of a challenge, by way of new and fresh ideas. And actually, some of these ideas aren't so new and fresh. Civilizations, groups of people have existed around the world for thousands upon thousands of years, and they all have not created family in the same way. This is Inanna Joy, sharing a few of the things that I've learned and some things that I'm still learning with you. Thanks for jumping in the joy well with me, where we examine what it means to grow and to live and love through life's joy, pain, sunshine, or rain. In the joy well, you will follow your bliss to your purpose. You will align with your joy and live well. See you soon.